The fuck is this? Hello and welcome to the dungeon. My name's Dan, and in today's video we've been playing a lot of Death Stranding, although I use the word playing in the broadest possible sense of the term. So, let me set your expectations very quickly for this video. There's been a lot of hubbub about this game, Death Stranding, and whether you'll either love it or you'll hate it. I am very much in the camp of I despise this game. Now, be that as it may, I know there are a lot of people who genuinely like this one, and that's absolutely fine. I'm not here to tell you you're stupid for liking the things you like, and I can kind of see the kind of things that are in this game that people do appreciate. And I'll come back to that later in this video, so let me just set the scene. To those of you who are unfamiliar, Death Stranding is by the Japanese games developer Hideo Kojima, and he will inform you that he made this game during the opening credits no less than 4 separate times, and has gotten quite the reputation for a lot of crazy wacky shit in his storytelling. Death Stranding is no different. This title takes place in a post-apocalyptic America, because post-apocalyptic is the coolest setting to have. But this time the apocalypse was caused by some kind of weird rupture between the worlds of the living and the worlds of the dead, which means anyone who dies now becomes a bloated corpse that will go nuclear, and there are lots of scary, spooky ghosts wandering around looking for more victims, I imagine. You've also got rain and snow that ages you, babies that you can use as batteries, and this weird tar stuff that turns into giant squid dog monsters and tries to eat your face. So yeah, pretty standard Hideo Kojima fare really. You play a guy called Sam Porter Bridges, and that is also linked to your occupation. You are a porter, so you take stuff from point A to point B. Due to some weird spooky shit, you get involved in a plan to reunite the entire United States of America. However, this time they are now the UCA, United Cities of America, which basically means going from one place to another and setting up their Wi-Fi. Throughout your journey you'll come across a bunch of characters whose name is reflective of their role in the story, such as a guy called Deadman, a lady called Mama, another guy called Die Hard Man. Yes, no shit, that's his name. And they all fit into the sprawling narrative about trying to reconnect the world. Yes, Hideo, I get your symbolism. Maybe next time you look at your English dictionary you can look at the word subtlety. So why do I hate Death Stranding? Well, let's start with the gameplay. You are a delivery man throughout the entirety of the game. The vast majority of the gameplay is you going to a city or a center or some kind of outpost, you receiving an order from that city to deliver to another outpost. It's then your job to take said order, which could be a multitude of things. Could be drugs, could be food, could be blood, could be photographs, guns, whatever. Doesn't really matter. You take that order, you go from there to where you need to be, you hand in your order, and then you take a new order, and you're zigzagging all across the UCA, bringing more people into the fold, and delivering their mail. If that sounds like the most tedious, boring thing to do in a video game, you would be correct. There are two main types of challenges when you're going from A to B. The first is the terrain, so I guess there's a lot of rocks, rivers, and just unpassable things now in the US of A, and you have to take a lot of ladders, grappling hooks, devices for building structures, that kind of thing with you, so you're carrying a lot of weight. It's very much Hiking Simulator 2019. There are times where to get to one place you'll just need to create a ladder and just start climbing, and other times you can simply go the long way around, potentially running into the second main obstacle, which is the enemies, which in turn come in two different flavors. You've got the mules. These are stupid enemies. You see, a mule is a person who I guess was brought up on stories of delivery people back in the days before the Death Stranding, and they've become somewhat obsessed with taking your mail and putting it in their own postbox. They don't really care about you, they're happy to let you go on by, but if you have anything worthwhile, they'll want to take your shit. So basically, bandits. But they're doing it because I guess they've not really thought of any other options to live. I mean, there's plenty of orders out there. They literally could become upstanding citizens and just deliver people's posts because that's the nice thing to do. Anyway, these are your typical bandits, and it's stupid. In fact, I'd say their background actually detracts from what they are. If you just called them bandits or marauders or something like that, people who just want to take your shit because they're bad people, without this convoluted backstory of them wanting to be Amazon employees, then you probably wouldn't have so much of a narrative issue. But hey, what do I know? Later on you do come across some terrorists who just want to cause you some grief and misery, and I guess that's okay, nice and simple, straight to the point. But alongside the human enemies, you've also got the spooky ghosts. And this can happen pretty much at any point in the landscape. Anytime it starts raining or snowing and your baby starts getting a little worked up, the spooky ghost will turn up, and it's your job to try and get out of the area. Otherwise, you got some more frustration coming your way. Now, these scenes in themselves, at first at least, were quite interesting. This is very much like a stealth type situation where you gotta crouch down low, gotta hold your breath, gotta try and sneak away. You do get weapons later on that can hurt these ghosts, but early in the game, all you got to do is really get out of their way. And you can't really see much of these ghosts. You get a vague sense of where the creature is, although it does leave handprints on the ground, but no footprints, which makes me think all these ghosts are acrobats doing cartwheels or something. So you use your baby and your little fan type thing to try and work out where roughly the enemy is, and so you go in the opposite direction. Should the spooky ghosts find you and get hold of you, they'll drag you down into this tar type area where you'll slide along for a while and then fight off a giant squid dog monster. Should the giant squid dog monster kill you, there's quite a few steps here, then you'll go off to this weird underwater section, you'll reunite with your body, you'll go through, I'm guessing, the birthing canal, you'll see a baby's head, and boom, you're back in the real world again, and you just cause a crater, because apparently that's what you do. You, by the way, your character, is what's called a repatriate, so you can actually trick death, you can keep on coming back however much you want to, which means there's not really much of a consequence for dying. So, my biggest absolute problem is the sheer amount of frustration, because you are putting everything on your back, more or less. You can get vehicles later, but particularly in the beginning, you are putting the entirety of the order, all the equipment you need, everything else that you might find along the way on your back or on your side or in your pouches. And this game wants to create the hardship of loading yourself up so much. So you keep on swaying from back and forth, you have to manage your balance and remain upright, because if you fall down, which will happen, especially in streams or on slopes, you could lose and break all your shit and it can go tumbling away. And of course you have to find it. Bear in mind, you're doing this all the time when you're traveling, even in situations when you're fighting off mules or you're trying to avoid ghosts. So yes, you could slip down a ski slope whilst terrorists want to try and pop a cap in your tight ass, and you've got a screaming baby in your ear because, you know, the baby doesn't like stressful things, and you have to manage all of that, bearing in mind that you get fatigued, you lose blood, you have to manage your thirst, some of your cargo spent too long in the rain so it's almost useless. And you can't kill any of the human bastards, because if you do, you'll create another corpse which will go supernova and explode. Oh, and tight corners. Low ceilings. They're bastards. There were so many times where I wanted to simply rage quit. in honesty, I've not even finished this game, and that hurts because I always like to try and get to an end of a story-rich game as much as I can, and this game has a lot of story to it, but I just couldn't. 25, 30 hours in, and I'd had enough. I'm sorry. There are a few upsides to the gameplay. Yes, you can get vehicles, and that can be fun, but that's always been fun in these open world type games. You can get a trike or a truck, and that does ease the burden of your, well, burdens somewhat, but said trike or truck can get caught in a crevice of a mountain, or lose battery in a river, or just get blown up by some terrorist bastards. So then, you have to exit said trike or truck, gather your stuff together, which is causing more stress to the baby, and resume your journey on foot. And we are literally talking about traversing mountains here, as in the big snowy ones. So you'll have to find a route which you can drive up, and if you can't, you have to hike up as much as possible, bearing in mind you have near all white visibility and still more hungry ghosts after your soul. There is also a building and resource management side to Death Stranding, so on your journey you will find things like metals or ceramics, chemicals, that kind of thing, and from that you can build certain things such as generators or safe houses to help move from place to place. Bridges are very useful for, well, going over rivers, and you have this weird kind of multiplayer aspect where once you connect a place to the internet, then you can see other people's structures, which are, I guess, sharing the same server or nearby or something, so you can use someone else's bridge or lab if you wanted to. It's definitely in keeping with the theme. I will give Hideo a point for that. It's definitely consistent with what story he's trying to tell. So let's go back to the story very briefly. You see, another thing that really irks me about this game is his comments afterwards when people were starting to shit on it. More on shitting later as well, so there's a few things to look forward to. Anyway, Mr. Kojima said that American audiences just didn't get it. My European ones did. His European fans, I guess. Well, Hideo, I got the themes you were trying to tell, I got more or less your story, and I think more work was required. Going back to the start of this video when I talked about the main character's job, that was actually a bit of a lie. You see, for a job, I assume that someone gets paid for their efforts. This game has no kind of monetary economy, so when you're going from point A to point B with the work you have to do, at point B you will not get paid for it. The cities and towns you go to have very generic names, which include the word knot, like knots in a rope. Again, more symbolism. So for example, you'll go to South Knot City or Mountain Knot City. All these very boring terms, very kind of sterile, characterless terms. The main human bad guys in this game, led by Troy Baker, are terrorists. And another term they use for terrorists is separatists, i.e. people who really don't want to join the UCA, who prefer having their own autonomy and like doing their own thing. A large section of the middle of this game is going to various independent preppers and convincing them to join the UCA, even though they are living perfectly happy by themselves doing their own thing. Hideo, the reason that Americans don't like your game is because you presented an extremely un-American America. No one's interested in your commie manifesto. And yes, although the world is visually quite pretty, the actual places in this game are all bland and very samey. All the structures you go to actually get a new delivery or turn in a delivery all look the same, with a few exceptions of the way stations. But of the big cities, it's all that big, long building you can drive down and just go to a point. There are no landmarks to remind you of what country this game is set in. There's very little to even explore. Yes, occasionally you'll come across this microchip you can take in and hand to someone to get their gratitude, I guess. But the vast majority is just empty wilderness. You can't even go into most buildings you see. They're just big blocks dotted around the landscape. And it's so isolated as well. You don't really have any kind of contact with other human beings apart from guys trying to kill you, or the occasional NPC porters that you'll come across who you can give a like to. Yes, this game has a weird like system, like Facebook, or Communist China. Let me explain. You see, you get likes on your job, which I guess is their version of currency, so maybe not quite working for nothing. So with these likes, and I'm saying that whilst doing the whole comma thing, you get them and you apply them to your abilities as a porter. I say you, it's all done automatically, you have no choice in how you allocate these likes. And once you get to a certain threshold, you then get a benefit. So, for example, if one of the categories is stability, and you are very good at delivering packages undamaged, then you'll get a point in just being more stable on your feet, so falling down less. Alternatively, if you're very good at building structures and laying paths down for other people, then you'll get the means to get more likes from people, and the better you get, the more your reputation grows. So, the more likes you get, the better your social reputation, i.e. it is like that episode of Black Mirror. Right, let's talk about combat, because there is some of this in the game, and although you can't really kill people, or you're not supposed to, you can definitely run them over, which I guess is fine, because yeah, traffic accidents don't count. But say you're not in a vehicle, how would you deal with a bunch of mules who want to try and take your stuff? Well, you can always punch them, which is fun. It gets a little tricky when they start blocking, and if they crowd around you in large numbers, that can also be awkward, but you do have good old fisticuffs, and it's just pressing a single button, trying to dodge maybe, and wailing on them until they fall down unconscious. Or you can take out the bowler gun, which was fun for me at least, where you fire a bowler and you get them all wrapped up, and then you can kick them on the ground and they go unconscious. Rubber bullets is also another popular one, where you can mimic using an assault rifle without the actual guilt of killing people. And again, you do it enough times and they fall down unconscious. Let me tell you something about a human being who's unconscious. You see, in this they're unconscious for ages, probably hours really. In real life, if a human being is unconscious for anything longer than say a minute, they are getting some serious case of brain injury and potentially brain death by the end of it. So, is this way really so humane, Hideo? Is it? Oh, and let me talk to you about pissing and shitting. You see, when you go to your private room and you teleport there via special timey-wimey stuff, I don't really get it. All the rooms look the same, even though you have one every single place with all your stuff there. Like with toy soldiers. Anyway, I digress. You can go and use the shower. The shower has two settings, hot and cold. Not that you personally can control it, it's just watching a video. So a lot of foaming, wet, Norman Reedus. But anyway, that shower will give you some grenades, because all the grime comes off your body, it goes into the sink and creates for you grenades to use, because the spooky ghosts don't like stuff associated to you. You can also, in the same shower, piss and shit, and no, that's not a euphemism, you literally can do that. Obviously you don't quite see the business, which is fine, and you will create, and I laughed at this, a number 1 and a number 2 grenade. For those of you who are interested, I'm afraid there are no jizz bombs in this title. So you take your shitty and pissy grenades and you can throw them at ghosts who don't really like that. Sorry, I made myself laugh there. They don't like it, as I'm sure most people don't, and they will go away. The game also has bosses, so using this method against them as well as your own blood is the key to destroying the big, angry, spooky ghost squid monsters. The one time this game gets anywhere close to interesting is when you get sucked into these weird time zone situations where you're on this battlefield. You get to World War One, World War Two, I'm sure there's other ones, and you're fighting these zombie-like old squaddies. And that was fun, no guilt at all, just shooting the shit out of them until they disappear into orange mist, wandering around the trenches looking for Mads Mikkelsen, because there's a lot of well-known actors in this one. And it actually got close to being a third-person cover-based shooter without the cover and not much shooting or weapon variety. Assault rifles, pistols, shotguns, grenades, that's about it really. Another time in World War II, you're going around this church trying to hunt him down, and again, same kind of thing, spooky ghosts, you shoot them, you shoot him eventually, and it's over. Far too short, and the best part of the game. You also see a short video of Mads Mikkelsen talking to your baby every time you leave a station, and these will often get repeated, so thanks for that. Going back to weeing, you can in the field take your tool out and let loose a stream and create some mushrooms down the line, should you wish to. So here's me thinking, okay, unconscious terrorist, I can urinate whenever I want to. Can I urinate on the terrorist? The answer is no. I'm afraid he doesn't like to get his dick out with people around. Dude, that's the whole point. So yes, not being able to wee on bad people has affected the score of this game. So visually it's a very nice, detailed, bland environment with pop-in for the grass and other things like that. I was playing this on the standard PlayStation 4, so a Pro and you might get some better features, who knows. The skyboxes are nice, I guess, when you see the storms raging through and the upside down rainbows for some reason. As for the soundtrack, this is okay when there's no vocals. When you're in a mule camp, the game will go all electronic and a bit of a rave situation as you have to try and escape. Very similar to Horizon Zero Dawn, which is not surprising considering it was based on the same engine, and a few times I saw Aloy wandering around, or at least waving at me as a hologram, so that was a nice little feature to a good game. But Hideo is an auteur, and what I guess a lot of auteurs like to do is blatantly put in their friends and their musical interests, so as you're progressing through the game, you will see the title and start hearing the strumming of a hipster indie band called Low Roar. I know this from seeing their name for so many times on my screen. Also, speaking of trying to sell me stuff, what is it with all these monster cans that Sam just drinks when he's in his private room? So you're saying the United States doesn't have its infrastructure anymore, it doesn't have its industries, it doesn't have, well, democracy, but it still has Monster. Okay. For performance, it was generally quite stable. I did have a single crash, but the most frustrating things, as I said before, was falling into a crevice in a mountain and not being able to get out. Sometimes I just couldn't really see my character due to his placement against the video game's camera. Other times I couldn't see other parts of the screen which I needed to because I had 20 Amazon crates on my back and that was obscuring the view. In some ways, they shouldn't have really dealt with combat anyway. They should have just had it some kind of pacifistic delivery guy and left it there. You can customize certain things as well, like your backpack, your vehicles, your shades, various colors you unlock by helping, well, I say helping, delivering stuff to people. And as you progress through the story, you get these little army men which you get in your room, and you can show them off to the camera if you wish. Also, quit winking at me every time you take a shit. So one of the reasons I think a lot of people do like this game is the characters and the story. Make no mistake, Hideo Kojima wants to really make movies, so he's employing a lot of movie techniques here. So a lot of tragic backstories, a lot of character motivations which are becoming clear as the plot progresses. You can really get attached to these people, and even myself I found thinking, "Aw, what a nice guy or woman or ghost baby or whatever." So it does tug at the heartstrings quite a bit. But all these interactions you see, everything is pre-rendered CGI. There is basically zero gameplay involvement. As soon as you go into a certain area, bam, you're on your ass watching a video for the next 20 minutes. Yes, I know this is his MO from Metal Gear Solid, but it was bad then, and it's bad now. I don't play games so I can watch a CGI movie. I like movies, and I like games. They are two very different mediums. And as a game, I think it fails on that front. So much so that I'm just going to watch all the movies on YouTube anyway and find out what happened in the plot from there. As I said earlier, if you like this game, that's perfectly fine. Personally, I think it's Stockholm Syndrome, and it's way too long, way too many mountains to climb over, and a lot of backtracking as well. Going from one place to another, and then back to the original place again, are all part of the plot line. Anyway, I digress. Death Stranding for me gets 2.5 wet Norman Reedus buttholes out of 5. There is good potential here for a game. I do like the spooky ghost aspect. I do like going back in time, and shooting is always going to be fun. Vehicles are going to be fun. Building stuff, like bridges, was fun. But ultimately, for me, a very bland, boring, frustrating, and convoluted experience. So no, I will not be joining the UCA, and no, I will not be buying any monster drinks. There is literally more product placement in this game than there is in I Love You Colonel Sanders, a finger-licking good dating simulator. Right, well, thank you for, again, making it this far and for letting me unload my burdens on you of that, and I shall see you next time. Goodbye!